Over the last 2 years, I've been producing some documents called The Voice. This details an NSA-run mass mind manipulation program in this country. This program also involves microchipping individuals, genetic engineering and experimentation, and is run from a base deep in the Berkshire countryside. I've been involved with this program for a number of years now. In fact, I was first inducted in 1972. I worked at the base, which is located underground at Peasemore in Berkshire, as a security officer.
What size of base is this?
Well, when I was there, the complex itself was approximately 450 yards by 650 yards, but obviously since then it's probably doubled in size.
And how many levels?
6 levels. They were the main levels.
And how far would they be down underground?
The deepest point would have been about a mile. I only had access to a certain amount of information, so I only know about those 6 levels.
So, starting from scratch, how did you get involved with the base?
Well, I was sort of manoeuvred into working there as opposed to just being a guinea pig like many thousands of others. So it was a manoeuvred opportunity by the NSA to get me into the base where they could keep an eye on me as well as to actually take part in the security procedures.
So did you apply to the Ministry of Defence? Or?
Oh no. I was approached direct by the controllers of the program.
Why? I mean, why did your name come out of the hat? Did you win the Reader's Digest competition?
That would have been a nice way around it. No, I was also a participant in a government-run survey. Since I was a child, this survey is ongoing. And by 1972, when the survey actually started to link hand in hand, if you like, with the program, I was monitored very closely from 72 onwards. So by 79.
By who?
The survey is run by the governments of 3 main countries. That's the UK, the USA and Canada. This survey is actually run from Harwell, who have very close links, as I said, with Peasemore.
What sort of links does Harwell have with Peasemore?
Because a lot of genetic engineering and experimentation takes place, obviously Harwell is the main place of the survey. They have direct links because the guinea pigs that are taken to Peasemore and used for experimentation engineering, there's obviously a direct link with Harwell and a number of other establishments, such as Portland Down.
And where else?
Watchfield, over in Oxfordshire, the military science place over there. Greenham Common is also linked, so is Boscombe Down. Boscombe Down is used mainly for the import and export of the hardware used by the program.
What sort of hardware are they dealing with then?
Well, we're talking here, the hardware is actually super stealth type aircraft.
So altogether quite normal technology?
I wouldn't use the word normal technology.
Secret but advanced?
Very advanced. I mean, some of the machinery they've got is advanced to a level where you could say that certainly an alien technology was involved at one stage.
So why would that suggest, I mean, surely we're pretty intelligent ourselves?
When we're talking in terms of the technology that people have had a glance at over at Groom Lake, Area 51, it's that sort of technology we're talking about. The hardware used is the hardware being tested at Groom Lake. It's been tested here in the UK since the mid-60s. I mean, they used areas around Salisbury Plain in the 60s, hence all the reports around Warminster at the time.
Yeah.
That was the hardware being tested.
So what kind of hardware are we talking about? Flying discs, alien spacecraft, Rob Lazar type stuff?
Well, not
a sport model?
Well, I couldn't go as far as actually, the S4 type thing. But certainly disc-shaped aircraft, triangular shaped aircraft. I do know for a fact that under the NATO banner, one of the hardware devices used since the mid-80s is a triangular craft, quite large, hover capabilities, usually silent. That's been test flown in many Western European countries, including Belgium.
So that is our military, but
That's
derived
our
from...
military, yes. They're our devices, yeah.
So, getting back to Harwell, what influence or what part does that play in the program?
Because there's a lot of genetic engineering and experimentation, let's use the word alteration and modification, perhaps would be more like it.
Is that conducted on humans?
It is, yes.
So how does one actually realise that or know it?
You don't actually realise you're part of the program or the survey. Most participants in the survey are active from early childhood. You undergo more medical checkups, more x-rays, more blood tests. You are taken to various establishments, usually Harwell itself, that's the main one, and you are monitored biologically, medically throughout your life. As I say, this is ongoing.
So what key factor are they looking for?
I think what they're trying to produce in the long run is a super being.
So is this derived back to the World War II experiments that Hitler did?
Certainly the paperclip scientists, yeah, who were captured by the Americans, mostly taken over to the USA. Certainly that sort of experimentation has carried on since the late 40s. Yeah.
So you started at this base when?
I started work in August, September of 1979, and that carried on until about Christmas of 79. It came to a stage when they needed to physically do something about the way I was becoming aggressive and trying to get away from the program.
What is this program you're talking about?
Well, this is mind manipulation, genetic engineering, as I said. They use, because UFO research plays about 50% of the program's activities. They use a lot of researchers, they use psychics. They stage abductions, so that's where the military abductions come in. They actually have...
So the military are doing these abductions and the aliens are doing it?
I wouldn't say the aliens aren't doing it. Obviously there is ample evidence to suggest that there are alien abductions, but certainly the military take more than their share.
And what is Peasemore?
Peasemore is an NSA stroke United States Air Force secure installation. It's a subsurface base at Peasemore. On all official documents, Peasemore's the name they use. It's the closest village. I mean, the very edge of the base would be directly under, within 2 miles of the village of Peasemore.
So where did the NSA originally set the place up?
They used, previous to Peasemore, they used another base, which unfortunately I'm not at liberty to say where that base is at the moment. The people who are assisting, who want to see this information got out, are a section of British intelligence. They are the Defence Intelligence section. But it's got to a stage when they realise that the NSA are literally going to take over the intelligence network, not only in this country, but virtually, in the end, the whole world.
So who runs the NSA? Is it the reptilians or what?
No one knows. They're this faceless bunch of characters who are above the NSA. No one knows who they are. But certainly the NSA have got more than enough clout, so everyone...
So the British defence people are getting a bit peeved off that...
They're getting worried. I mean, the programme diverted some years ago to a very sinister side when they were using spare parts from humans. They were abducting people. A lot of these people never saw the light of day again. They were used as spare parts.
That's like the film Coma?
Very like the film Coma. In fact, that sort of regional hospital policy where they get taken to a certain operating theatre, and that's the termination room. Well, think of that laterally, and that is what happens at Harwell and Peasemore. Various individuals are abducted, taken there, they never come out again. They're used as nice, healthy specimens.
Again, are they genetically selected for any particular reason, or are we just dealing with a relatively random catch?
In the beginning, it was just, a random thing. I mean, anyone would do. I mean, obviously, we can get a number of good spare parts from this person, all well and good. But then they started to get very fussy. The only grey, now, if we use the term grey as an alien being, was those that actually were around the base at the time.
Right.
At the
so
base,
how many are you talking about greys at Peasemore then?
I've only seen 2 greys at Peasemore.
Right. And what did they look like?
Well, the typical picture everyone gives. Very small, very frail, large heads, very dark, wraparound eyes.
And were they escorted by military personnel?
Escorted by military and NSA personnel.
And were there any reptilians in there as well?
On one occasion I did see, yes, what I would call reptilian.
So how different are they to the greys?
Totally different. These are much bigger, much stronger. They gave an aura of, strength and power, as if you don't mix with these.
So these as big as a man, or bigger, or?
Certainly bigger than, a good 6 inches taller than me, so well over 6 foot, yeah.
I
think it was more like a case of they could just walk around there as if they owned the place. That was just the assumption.
So they were not escorted? The reptilians were not escorted?
The reptilians, although obviously everyone in the base is, let's use the word loosely, escorted, but I think it was more a case of the reptilians were escorting the NSA personnel around the base.
You mentioned something about a trip seat in the boys'
Yeah, there is an area of the base called the labs and electronic areas. Situated in the labs are devices which are called trip seats. Now these are very large chairs connected to very advanced computer systems, and a guinea pig is strapped to this chair. You are interfacing directly with the computers. During this interfacing, the individual is then programmed by the personnel at the base to literally do whatever they want you to do. It's advanced psychotronics.
So how does this programming take place, and what does it involve?
Again, depending on what tasks they want that individual to perform at some stage. I mean, if you've seen the film Telephone, a 1977 film, sleeper agents, for want of a better term, were activated by a simple single telephone call. They were given a phrase over the telephone. Immediately,
for assassination, or?
I suppose they could be used for that, although I don't really see why there'd be such a need. On the trip seat, as I say, you're interfacing with the computers. You've got a very big wraparound screen in front of you. This is holographic. There's also a special helmet and visor placed on your head. So literally all images, subliminal images that come through. They use the EBL.
What's that?
Electronic brain link.
What does that involve?
Well, that involves the images directly being converted from the computers into images acceptable by the brain. They're implanted. They're held there until activated at a later time by.
So is this a direct electrical connection to your mind, or induced?
You are connected directly to the seat, which, as I say, comes through the computer. So yeah, you're interfacing. Literally, it's man and machine as one.
So is there any psychic use for this, or?
They use mostly psychics there. They enhance anyone with any level of psychic ability. If they can make use of that. I mean, the military use people for remote viewing targets in military installations in other countries. So anyone with any trace of psychic ability in them, they'll enhance that considerably. PK, remote viewing, and a number of other bits and pieces.
So are they able to see what you're seeing in your head, or is it just a one-way thing into you?
They can't actually not visually see what you're seeing. They just know what they're pumping through to you, so they virtually know what's happening anyway.
So how do they know that you...
Well, they give simple tasks first, like say 2 days after being in the trip seat, then they'll set you a task, and if you can perform that task 100%, they know it's worked, and then they can actually program more sophisticated tasks for you at a later date. But during 1988, I underwent a truck stop event. This is where the defence intelligence people came into the scene, 1988. Because they've got access to exactly the same techniques used by the program at Peasemore, they brought me out of the post-hypnotic blocks.
So they reversed the process?
They reversed the process virtually, gave back a lot of the information. There's still a lot blocked, but they decided that, yeah, they'll reverse as much as suited them for information to be released. So yeah, I got a lot of conscious recall after they reversed the situation, and they've sort of filled in so many gaps since.
Such as what?
Well, physically going back to the base.
Which entrance did you use to get into the base?
Bravo, mainly. That's Green and Common.
Green and Common. Which, we were there recently. Now that's through one of the large hangars?
Yeah.
Or the underground bunkers, rather?
Yeah, that's it.
So, what other things did they do to, and how was that involved? Did they do that in the truck when you had the truck, or did they take you somewhere else? And...
Well, the truck stop event, I mean, I was, because I was still under the control of the electronic brain link, so, and DI8 having access to exactly the same.
So how did that work? How are you under the control of the brain link?
Well, that's with that.
The implant?
The implant. They needed someone. As I say, I think they saw it as to suit their purposes. They needed someone to start getting some information. It was a case of information was then given to me, which included a load of photographs, maps, codes. I was to hide that documentation and retrieve it at a later time.
So that's maps and codes and photographs?
Maps, codes, photographs of the base.
Stand fairly close. The mic here is going to get closer.
What's your name, and what was your position and the name of the base where you worked?
Yeah, I'm Barry King. I worked as a security enforcement officer at a base AL499 Peasemore over in Berkshire.
And when did you work there, and for how long?
Well, 2 short terms. I began in August of 79 through to January of 80, and again November 80 to January 81.
Did you notice anything strange going on at that base?
Well, there were many things that you could call strange, although at the time it was just part and parcel of the work that was undertaken there. A lot had to do with mind control, reprogramming people psychologically, testing of people involving genetics and the creation of life forms.
What type of life forms?
Well, these were small grey, your typical greys, in fact, they were producing.
How many of them? What sort of
hundreds? You're talking hundreds. They were in 3 stages at the time. To maturity, very tiny people.
So they were primarily 4 feet or under in size?
Yeah, 3.5 to 4 feet. Yes.
Describe them in more detail.
Again, basically your typical grey, although the main difference being the eyes. The beings produced at Peasemore had perfectly round eyes, as opposed to the big black wraparound eyes reported countless times in abduction scenario.
And were they programmed, or were they working on their own, or what?
No, they're programmed by central computer systems.
So whatever their tasks were, they were programmed and sent out.
And what were they used for?
In my labs, military abductions.
And were these abductions carried out at Peasemore, or were they carried out at another base?
A lot were carried out at Peasemore, some were actually done in the field in various locations around the UK, and of course, yes, other bases.
And what was being done, or what organization was involved in keeping you from releasing this information?
Primarily the NSA. The project name was Puppet Master. It stemmed from an older project going back to the 50s. That is still an ongoing project.
And what's that name?
Puppet Master. The mannequin project is the name.
The earlier one?
Yeah, that is Puppet Master.
What relevance does it have with today, or do you know?
Well, the vast increase in the reports of military abductions as opposed to alien abductions, you'll find perhaps 60-70% of abductions reported worldwide will probably be my labs. It involves an ongoing genetic project run by the governments of the UK, Canada and the States. Genetically monitoring people from a very early age. So I've virtually been involved since I was 3 or 4 years old. I was dragged into this mannequin project as a byproduct of being involved in the survey. So they literally knew me from a child. One of their primary aims, you're going to have to endure being in all manner of hostile environments. I mean, obviously, you know, those that are perfected will go on to be literally super beings. The trip seat, that's the chair that you're placed in. You are interfaced with the main computer systems. You are reprogrammed in that seat. All security staff at Peasemore undergo the same treatment as most of the subjects they use in the trip seat. You're placed in that, you're strapped in, you are subject to various procedures, drug-induced, hypnosis, virtual reality to such a high degree of technology.
What sort of virtual reality were you exposed to?
They can produce an abduction scenario right in front of your eyes within one of the labs at the base. With the drugs and the hypnosis combined with the technologies used there, you believe you are going through an abduction scenario there and then at that moment in time.
And how long have they had this technology?
Well, I was there in 79, 80 and it all had been perfected then, so by now, 20 years later, I really couldn't hazard a guess as how far that's progressed. 499 Peasemore. A base such as Peasemore is literally not going to be too easily found.
How do you get access to it?
Access used to be at 4 points, it's now only at 3. Harwell, Watchfield and IF Welford. Greenham Common used to be one of the main access points, but that's been closed down for some years now.
Do you have any information at this base at RAF Bentward, or anything to say on
well,
this?
the closest connection I can easily come up with is the 1980 famous Rendlesham case, December 1980. The NSA were heavily involved that night. The software and the hardware would have been brought in from Peasemore for that purpose. It was a psychological thing.
And the program generated life forms?
They would have been used.
But they were also at Rendlesham, were they?
So you're saying that the Rendlesham Forest event, the 3 nights of events which happened here, was a military-induced...
It was a cyber thing, yeah.
So it wasn't actually an alien thing?
Not in the true sense of alien as in extraterrestrial, no.
So it was a staged military...
A carefully planned, staged, military thing, yeah.
And it involved psychotronic technology, or the psychor?
I don't like using the word psychotronics, which gives it a rather science fiction, airy-fairy feel, but certainly
radionic?
technologies that would have an impact on the psychologies of people involved, yeah. So, I mean, people would come away thinking...
And we're talking about the event happening way over there, really, as far as the camera can see, really, roughly speaking, behind those buildings.
So these machines would put thoughts in people's minds? Or...
Putting it very basically...
How would you characterize it?
They would see things that are not really there. They would experience things. I mean, Larry Warren and one or two others mentioned the highly charged atmosphere, their skin tingling, hair standing on end. That would be all part and parcel of the machinery, yeah, all in.
So you're saying that the Bentwaters event, which happened here between the Rendlesham Forest case, was a MyLab situation?
More of a cyborg, yeah. It was done on a psychological level to permanently imprint on the airmen here at the time to believe that went through.
What do you know which would be the ultimate purpose of such experiments and tests and demonstrations?
Literally to use on an enemy at some stage. You can get an enemy to believe that they've been invaded by an alien life form and using technology way beyond their understanding. You've got the edge on that enemy.
And what sort of physical size or state were these beings in? I mean,
well,
were
they
they
looked very small and very frail. I mean, at one stage, I even picked one up and hoisted it over my shoulder just to see how heavy, and it weighed virtually nothing at all. They're just...
How did it respond when you picked it up?
It didn't. If you imagine, well, it's just like picking up a child who's asleep. There's no response at all. It hadn't been programmed yet.
How were they fed and how were they programmed?
Don't need feeding. There's no...
well, how do they grow?
I'm not on that technical side of things, that I wouldn't know, but seeing them in their 3 different development stages, you know...
What was stage number 1? Can you describe each stage?
Well, they're all kept in different sort of environments, from the small
what type of environment?
tiddlers right up to the large, the big ones, as we call them. When they're fully grown, they're the big ones. They start off as tiddlers. Again, it's much easier to draw or show a drawing I've done rather than describe the different containers they were in.
Were they in some kind of...
People think ultimately of little glass jars filled with little liquid, but it wasn't that. It wasn't it.
Just like babies in incubation units in hospital?
That would be closer to it, yeah. I mean, people imagine these little Frankensteinian glass jars lined up on a shelf. It's nothing like that at all.
In a previous interview, Barry, you mentioned seeing a lizard-like creature at Peasemore. Would you tell us more about that?
Yeah, on one occasion, it was just a single occasion, I was in the main corridor at the base, and coming out of the room, along the main corridor was this very large creature, very tall, well over 6 foot, being accompanied by 2 men in suits, which I took to be NSA operatives. They're the only ones who don't wear badges in the place. I just stopped in my tracks, very, very shaken. I mean, it's a very powerful looking being, very difficult to describe, just very, very tall, very well built, very strong, well over, as I say, well over 6 foot. He must have towered at least a foot over my head. A greeny, browny, mottled type of skin. I tried to take in as many details as possible, but as I say, it literally caught me unawares. I was really put into shock. Didn't know what the hell it was. It was just casually walking along the main corridor with the 2 operatives. Got a very strong sense of evil and nastiness about the thing. It worried me for quite a while afterwards. I mean, you know, you're never told. The security people are the last to be told what's going on. But it was inferred by others at the time that was one of the reptile species. Of course, it didn't mean that much to me at the time. but every time you asked questions, no one wanted to answer. It was just strongly inferred that, yeah, that was a reptilian, you don't want to mess with that, and it was just left at that. But over the years, it just seems more and more plausible to me that that also was another creation from the base. It just, you know, there may well be reptilian races, but it's just as easy for the military to have actually made this thing, rather than it being an actual reptilian.
Like the rest of them?
Like the rest of them, yeah. I sit more happier with that yeah, that was actually made rather than an actual species, yeah.
That it was a program-generated life form.
I'm pretty certain it was, yeah.
Did he make sounds or say anything?
No, it never looked at me. It just continued walking. There was no interaction whatsoever. I only got some interaction from the two guys who, I'm standing there, mouth wide open, gaping at this, and I just got the look from them, just you know. And they just continued, and I continued about my business. No, there's no sound, no speaking, no nothing whatsoever. It was just walking along the main corridor with the two guys. That was it.
Did you have any idea what his function was?
Well, again, you ask as many questions as you formulate afterwards, once you've got over the initial shock of what the hell was that. No one wanted to know, no one wanted to easily give answers to questions. It was a case of, well, you saw it, that was it, you know, don't ask questions. Troublemakers ask questions and they don't want them.
He was walking on 2 feet, was he, or 4 feet, or?
2, yeah. So he's standing upright. I mean, as I say, I'm trying to take in. This all happened probably within 30 seconds. I'm taking it in, feeling, you know, yeah, I don't want to meet this on a dark night anywhere. Yeah, I never even bothered to look back. It was, well, the glance back I gave both the figure and the two guys was very brief. While I continued, that's it. I've got jobs to do. I'm away. That's not my business.
But over a period of time, you were there for upwards of a year or so altogether. Why did this one bit of 30 seconds? Why did this brief?
Because it was so out of place with what was going on there. I mean, everyone's so used to the 3 different phases, you know, of development of the PGs, and this literally stuck out like a sore thumb. You know, it's just not the usual thing you see around. It was just the once only. Yeah, it was very unnerving, very scary.
Any final questions?
You didn't see an insignia or anything on his clothing? I mean, he was dressed in something, presumably. If
it was, again, I never noticed. I didn't discern, you know, oh, that was skin and that was clothing. That just didn't, that wasn't there. It was just this tall being. I mean, mostly my focus was from, you know, chest upwards. I mean, the head, you know, I was literally expecting it to turn around and face me, and then I wouldn't know what I would have done if it had done, but it just kept looking straight and continuing, as if I wasn't even there. So, no, I didn't take in that many details. What I saw was, yeah, quite enough, thanks very much.
Is there anything that you could say it looked like?
Well, again, you've seen drawings that people have done over the years of supposed reptilians, Dracos, whatever the names are given. It lizard-like. I mean, it literally is like a very tall, very big lizard. I mean, you know, half expecting the big forked tongue to come out, but, you know, again, it's just what you expect, what you're programmed to expect a lizard-type being to be like.
Any idea why they would create such a creature?
Well, it's exactly the same like the normal, if you can call them that, PGs. I mean, they're there for military abductions. There's an aura of mystery over the reptilians. They're the dangerous ones. They're the ones who are in charge. They're just continuing that. Yeah.
Anything, finally, that you would like to say to the CSETI group?
Well, as I mentioned...
Any word of advice on it?
Well, there is. I mean, there's insiders out there who probably know a hell of a lot more than I'll ever know, and there's a lot of people out there who want to come forward. Just give them the reassurances that they'll be listened to without being laughed at. They'll come forward.
Can you help in that regard?
Well, it's limited to what I can personally do. I mean, I can only help with people over on this side of the Atlantic, and I know there's a load of people
locally,
who were involved. And by making my documents known, they know that I was involved. It might make me a little bit safer in coming forward.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. We certainly appreciate your time and efforts.
Okay.